Sister-in-law DNA tested my daughter behind my back and paraded the results on my daughter. All right, so here's the situation. I've got a daughter, Lily. She's 6 now, and she's basically the best thing that's ever happened to me. But here's the twist. She's not my biological daughter. There's no blood relation between us at all. And before you ask, no, I didn't have a secret affair or some hidden relationship. It's actually way more complicated than that. But I'll try to keep things as straightforward as I can. Lily's mom was my best friend. We literally grew up together, like from the time we were kids until, well, everything that happened. We were never romantically involved. There were never any weird feelings or anything like that. Just two close friends who supported each other through everything. She met her husband when we were in our early 20s, and they were great together. I wasn't close to him in the same way I was with her, but he was a good guy. But life's messed up sometimes, you know? About 6 years ago, there was a horrible incident. My friend and her husband were at work, just doing their normal day-to-day stuff, and something terrible happened at their workplace. I won't go into too much detail because I want to keep some things private, but the bottom line is they didn't make it out. It was a workplace shooting. It was all over the news for a while. When it happened, Lily was just a newborn, like 3 months old. Now, here's the thing. Both my friend and her husband came from less than ideal family situations. They didn't have any siblings, and their parents weren't in the picture at all. I mean, technically they existed, but there was no way those people were going to be a part of Lily's life. They weren't safe people to be around, if you get what I'm saying. So, with both her parents gone and no extended family, Lily didn't have anywhere to go. I don't even think anyone thought about who'd take care of her in case something happened. I guess you don't really plan for that kind of thing, especially when you're young. Anyway, the thought of Lily ending up in the foster system just didn't sit right with me. I mean, I didn't want kids before all this. I wasn't really into the idea of being a parent. But here's this little girl, completely innocent, with no one to take care of her. It felt wrong to just stand by and let her grow up without any connection to her parents. So, I made the decision to adopt her. I'm not going to lie. It was hard at first. I had no idea what I was doing. Babies are not easy, and suddenly being responsible for this tiny human was terrifying. But the thing is, I learned to love her. It wasn't immediate, or some big emotional moment where I suddenly realized I was her dad. It was more gradual. Like each day I spent with her, I got more attached, and she became more of my kid. And now, I can't imagine life without her. Everyone in my family knows the situation. They all know Lily's not my biological daughter. It's not some big secret or anything. I've been open with her too. She knows she's adopted, and that her real parents are gone because of a bad man. She doesn't know the full details, obviously, because she's still young, but she knows enough. And honestly, she doesn't really ask about it much yet. The funny part is, people often assume she's my biological kid. Like, she doesn't look anything like me at all, but people will just think she got all her looks from her mom. And I don't correct them. Why would I? It doesn't really matter to me what they think. If they want to assume she's mine, that's fine. I'm not going to sit there and explain the whole adoption story to random strangers. So that's the setup for the real story I'm trying to get to. A few weeks ago, we were at my parents' house for one of those big family gatherings. My brother's fiancée, who we'll call Sarah, was there with their 1-year-old son. We've all been getting along fine. I don't know Sarah super well, but she's been with my brother for a couple of years, and they've got a kid together, so she's part of the family now, I guess. Anyway, while we were there, Sarah saw this old photo hanging up in the hallway. It's a picture of me, my friend, Lily's mom, and her husband from way back when. We were probably in our early 20s at the time, all smiles and hanging out at some park. Sarah pointed at the picture and asked, "Who's this?" I explained that it was Lily's mom and her husband. I could see Sarah kind of processing the info, like she was putting things together in her head. She got real quiet and just stood there staring at the picture for a while. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured maybe she just didn't know the whole backstory or didn't realize Lily wasn't my biological kid. It's not like I go around announcing it to everyone I meet. But the rest of the night, Sarah seemed a little off. You know when someone is being nice to your face, But there's something off about how they act? That's what it was like. Fast forward a bit, and we're all sitting around the dinner table. Out of nowhere, my parents announced they were setting up a college fund for both Lily and my brother's son. They were going to give each kid $50,000 to start them off when they got older. I was completely blown away by that. It's such a generous thing to do, and I could tell my brother and I were both really happy about it. But here's where things started getting weird. After that night, I noticed Sarah getting a little distant from Lily. Like, whenever Lily tried to play with her son, Sarah would come up with an excuse to separate them. She'd say he needed a nap, or that he was hungry or whatever. But even if Lily was just asking Sarah something simple, like, "Can I help with the baby?" Sarah would brush her off, saying she was busy even when she clearly wasn't. She was just on her phone half the time. It felt wrong, you know? Like something had shifted, and I couldn't figure out why. I chalked it up to her, maybe just being overprotective of her kid or whatever. But there was this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that something was going on that I didn't know about. After that family dinner, things just got weird between Sarah and Lily. Like I mentioned, she started acting all distant and would come up with excuses to keep Lily and her son apart. I couldn't figure out what her deal was, but it was like she was purposely avoiding my daughter. It was subtle at first, but it started happening more and more often, and it wasn't just at family gatherings. It was all the time. At first, I thought maybe I was just overthinking it. You know, maybe Sarah was just being overprotective of her son, or maybe she was tired or stressed out with the whole parenting thing. But then, one day, things came to a head. It was a Saturday, and Sarah showed up at my place out of nowhere. No call, no text, nothing. She just knocked on the door like it was some kind of emergency. I opened the door, and there she was, standing there all serious, holding this folder in her hand like she had something super important to say. I figured it had to do with my brother or their kid, so I let her in, thinking maybe she needed some help or advice. The minute she walked in, I could tell something was off. She wasn't her usual self, and she was kind of fidgeting with the folder in her hands. I asked her what was up, and instead of getting straight to the point, she started pacing around my living room. Like, literally just walking back and forth, looking like she was trying to figure out how to say whatever it was she came to tell me. Finally, after what felt like forever, she stops pacing and just blurts out, "I did something, and I need to talk to you about it." At this point, I'm getting a little anxious, thinking she's about to drop some serious news on me. And she did. But it wasn't what I expected at all. She takes out the folder and pulls out these papers. Turns out they were DNA test results. For a second, I was confused. I mean, why would she have DNA results? And then it hit me. She didn't. She had Lily's DNA test results. I'm standing there in disbelief, and before I can even say anything, she goes, "I did a DNA test on Lily using my son's DNA, and the results show that they're not related." She was looking at me like she expected me to react in some huge way, like she just uncovered some kind of hidden truth or exposed some big lie. I didn't even know how to respond at first. Like, she literally went behind my back, got a DNA test done on my daughter, who isn't even biologically mine, and now she's standing in my living room acting like she's the hero of the story. What was she expecting me to do with this information? Was I supposed to be shocked? Was I supposed to feel embarrassed or ashamed? I mean, it's not like I've ever hidden the fact that Lily's adopted. Everyone in my family knows, including my parents and siblings. I've been completely open about it. But Sarah? She acted like she just blew the lid off some deep, dark secret. And to make it worse, she wasn't done yet. After she told me about the DNA test, she said something that absolutely floored me. She looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "You're raising some dead woman's affair baby." And she said it in front of Lily, who was sitting right there in the other room playing with her toys. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. First off, who even says something like that? And second, how dare she say something so messed up in front of my daughter? I just stood there staring at her, trying to process the insanity of the situation. And then, before I could stop myself, I started laughing. Like, full-on laughing. It wasn't even that I thought it was funny. It was just the sheer absurdity of it all. Sarah's standing there with her stupid folder of DNA results, looking all self-righteous, and I'm laughing in her face because what else could I do? Once I finally got myself together, I looked at her and said, I know Lily's not my biological daughter. She's adopted. This thing called adoption exists, and maybe you've heard of it. Her face went beet red. She clearly didn't expect that reaction from me. I think she thought she was going to drop this bombshell, and I'd be all devastated and questioning everything. But that's not what happened at all. Instead, she was the one who ended up looking like a fool, and she knew it. Without saying another word, she grabbed her folder, stormed out of the house, and slammed the door behind her. I was still fuming after she left, but mostly I was just mad that she had the nerve to bring that nonsense up in front of Lily. My daughter didn't deserve to hear any of that, especially not from someone like Sarah. She's 6 years old. She doesn't need to be dealing with any of that kind of drama. After Sarah left, I sat down with Lily and made sure she was okay. Luckily, she didn't seem to have caught on to what Sarah said. I kept it light and just told her that some people don't always understand things the way they should, but that it didn't matter because we were a family no matter what anyone else thought. But I was pissed. And honestly, I was hurt too. How could someone in my own family, someone who's supposed to care about me and my daughter, pull something like this? What did she even think she was accomplishing? I mean, did she really believe I didn't know Lily wasn't biologically mine? Did she think I was raising her by accident or something? Later that night, I called my brother to let him know what happened. I was still heated, but I figured he deserved to know that his fiancée had gone behind my back and done something so insane. But instead of being shocked or angry at her, he tried to defend her. He said she thought she was doing the right thing by getting the test done. He said she was just trying to help. I lost it at that point. How on earth is DNA testing someone else's child without their permission considered helping? I asked him straight up, what was she hoping to accomplish? Did she think I was going to abandon Lily? Was that the plan? He didn't have much to say after that. Just kept saying she didn't mean any harm and that I was overreacting. But how was I supposed to react? Someone tested my daughter without my knowledge, threw the results in my face, and then basically insulted me and Lily in my own home. There's no way I was going to just brush that off. The whole thing felt like a betrayal, not just from Sarah, but from my brother too. The fact that he wasn't even on my side in this just made things worse. I didn't expect him to tear Sarah apart, but at the very least, I thought he'd have my back. Instead, he was making excuses for her behavior, and I wasn't having it. That night, after I calmed down, I sat with Lily again, just to make sure everything was fine. She was totally oblivious to the drama, thank God. And as I watched her playing with her toys, I just kept thinking how lucky I am to have her in my life, no matter what anyone else thinks. So after that whole mess with Sarah pulling the DNA stunt, things felt off. It was like this weird tension that nobody wanted to acknowledge. I hadn't talked to Sarah since she stormed out of my place, and my brother? He wasn't exactly on my side, but we hadn't had a proper conversation about it either. It was just hanging there, like a bad smell nobody was addressing. I figured, whatever. Maybe Sarah would calm down and realize how stupid and messed up what she did was. Maybe she'd apologize, and we could all just move on. But no, that wasn't what happened. A couple of weeks went by, and we were all set to meet up again at my parents' place for another family thing. I wasn't really looking forward to seeing Sarah, to be honest. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. Was she going to pretend like nothing happened? Or worse, was she going to double down on her nonsense? Either way, I was just going to keep my distance and try not to let her ruin the day. So we get there, and things seem okay at first. It was kind of awkward, but nothing out of the ordinary for a family gathering. Sarah was doing her thing, chatting with my mom, playing nice, all that. I was just keeping an eye on Lily, making sure she was having fun, playing with her cousins and whatnot. It was all pretty normal, until, surprise, surprise, Sarah had another trick up her sleeve. At one point, my parents pulled me aside, looking all serious. My mom had that kind of concerned look on her face. You know the one, like she's about to drop something on you, but is trying to be gentle about it. My dad, on the other hand, looked pissed. That's when I knew whatever was coming wasn't going to be good. So, my mom tells me that Sarah had gone to their house a few days earlier. I was like, okay, what for? Thinking maybe it had something to do with my brother or their son. But no. Apparently, Sarah had told my parents that Lily wasn't my biological daughter, like it was some huge revelation. She'd gone over there all proud of herself, thinking she was exposing some big secret, like my parents didn't already know the whole situation. And as if that wasn't bad enough, she didn't stop there. She straight up told them that because Lily wasn't really my daughter, she shouldn't get the same $50,000 college fund that my parents had set up for the grandkids. She had the audacity to suggest that the entire $100,000 should go to her son because, according to her, he was the legitimate grandchild. I was speechless. Like, what the actual hell was wrong with her? Who does something like that? I felt this surge of anger rising up inside me. The fact that she was still trying to pull this crap, even after I'd already told her Lily was adopted, was beyond me. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to go behind my back and try to convince my parents to take away Lily's college fund. But here's the thing. I wasn't even mad about the money. I mean, yeah, that was messed up. But what really got to me was the principle of it. Lily might not be biologically related to me, but she's still my daughter. She's still part of this family. And for Sarah to try and push her out like that, to make it seem like she didn't belong, that was unforgivable. Thankfully, my parents didn't fall for Sarah's crap. My mom, who is normally the most gentle, understanding person in the world, apparently wasn't having any of it. She straight up told Sarah that Lily is their granddaughter, and nothing is going to change that. She said that if Sarah couldn't accept that, then she didn't belong in this family. And my dad, who's not usually one for big confrontations, backed her up. I could tell from the way my parents were telling me the story that they were really upset. My mom even said she kicked Sarah out of the house after she wouldn't drop it. I've never seen her that angry before. But honestly, I was glad they stood up for Lily like that. It meant the world to me that they had her back, that they saw her as part of the family no matter what. I guess Sarah didn't expect things to go that way, because ever since that incident, she's been quiet. I haven't heard a peep from her, and neither has my brother. Speaking of him, he's been keeping a low profile too. I'm guessing he finally had to have a serious conversation with Sarah about all the crap she pulled, but he hasn't said much to me about it. He did text me an apology at one point, but it was kind of vague. Like, sorry about everything that happened, kind of vague. No details, no real acknowledgement of what went down. But at least it was something, I guess. Honestly, I don't even know what their next move is. I'm not expecting an apology from Sarah anytime soon, but at this point, I don't really care. I'm just glad my parents stood their ground and made it clear that Lily is part of the family, no questions asked. Lily, of course, doesn't know anything about this. She's just a kid. She doesn't need to know that someone tried to take away her college fund or push her out of the family. All she needs to know is that she's loved, and that's exactly what I'm going to keep showing her. Every day, I'm going to make sure she feels that love from me, my parents, and everyone else who matters. I'm not sure what the future holds for our relationship with Sarah, but honestly, I'm done stressing about it. If she wants to come around and be part of the family, fine. But if she's going to keep pulling these stunts, I'm not interested. My priority is Lily, and making sure she grows up knowing she's got a family who loves her, no matter what some DNA test says. It's funny, though. You'd think after all this, I'd be more upset, but really I just feel relieved. Relieved that the people who matter, my parents, Lily, and me, are all on the same page. And as for Sarah, she's the one who ended up looking like a fool. My brother and Sarah didn't reach out, and honestly, I didn't feel like being the one to fix things this time. It felt like the ball was in their court, you know? They were the ones who messed up, and if anyone was going to apologize, it should be them. But here's the thing. Family stuff never just stays quiet forever. It's like there's always something brewing under the surface, just waiting for the next blow-up. I knew eventually something would come up again, and it didn't take long for that to happen. So, it was a random Thursday when my phone buzzed. I checked and saw it was my brother. He hadn't called me in weeks, so right away I knew something was up. I answered, and the first thing he says without any small talk is, "Hey, can we talk?" Now, "Can we talk" is never a good opener, right? That's the kind of line you use when you know the conversation's going to be awkward or heavy. I sighed, mentally preparing myself for whatever was coming, and just said, "Yeah, what's up?" He started off by saying how he felt bad about everything that had gone down. He said he understood why I was pissed, but that Sarah wasn't taking it well, and he wanted to clear the air before things got worse. And of course, he slipped in there that Sarah felt really misunderstood, and that she didn't mean any harm. That's when I started getting frustrated. I mean, misunderstood? She literally tried to get my daughter's college fund taken away because she wasn't biologically related to me. That's not being misunderstood. That's just being cruel. But instead of blowing up at him, I kept calm, somehow, and asked, what exactly does she think she was doing that wasn't harmful? There was this pause on the other end. I could hear him breathing, like he was trying to figure out the right words. Finally, he says, she thought she was protecting our family's legacy or some crap like that. He didn't even sound like he believed it himself. He was just repeating whatever Sarah had told him. He kept going, trying to explain how Sarah thought that since the money was coming from our parents, it should only go to their real grandchildren. And that's when I kind of lost it. I didn't yell or anything, but I was firm. I told him straight up, Lily is my daughter, period. If Sarah or anyone else has a problem with that, then they can stay out of my life. I'm not going to let anyone, family or not, make my daughter feel like she doesn't belong. There was another long silence, and then he said something that honestly shocked me. He goes, well, Sarah's not sure she wants to be around Lily anymore. Now, at that point, I had no idea where this conversation was even going. I mean, what was he expecting me to say? Oh, sure, that's fine. Keep your distance from my daughter because she's adopted? No way. I shot back. Then maybe you both need to figure out how important family really is to you, because if Sarah can't accept Lily, then we've got nothing else to talk about. It was quiet again after that. I could tell he wasn't expecting me to draw such a hard line. But honestly, what else was I supposed to do? I wasn't going to let Sarah's messed up views on what family means affect how my daughter feels growing up. That's not negotiable. Eventually, he said he'd talk to Sarah, but he didn't sound very hopeful about it. We ended the call kind of awkwardly, and I didn't feel any better about the situation. In fact, I felt worse. The fact that my brother was even entertaining Sarah's feelings on the whole thing really stung. Like, this is his niece we're talking about, and he's letting his fiancée create this toxic divide. It didn't sit right with me at all. That weekend, I took Lily to my parents' house again. I hadn't told them about the phone call because I didn't want to stir things up if I didn't have to. But while we were there, my mom pulled me aside. She could tell something was bothering me, so I just unloaded the whole story. The DNA test, the college fund drama, and now this latest bit about Sarah not wanting to be around Lily. My mom, bless her heart, was furious. She didn't yell or anything, but you could see it in her face. She just shook her head and said, that girl has no idea what family is. No idea. My dad, on the other hand, was more silent, but I could tell he wasn't happy either. He never liked drama, and this whole situation was becoming one big headache for everyone. We spent the rest of the afternoon hanging out with my parents, and Lily was having a blast, completely oblivious to all the nonsense happening behind the scenes. I kept thinking about what it would mean if things didn't get better. Would I really have to cut ties with my own brother because of Sarah's ridiculous ideas about family? It felt surreal, but at the same time I wasn't willing to compromise when it came to Lily's place in the family. Later that night, after we got home and I put Lily to bed, I got another text from my brother. This one was shorter, just a simple, "We need to talk again soon." I didn't respond right away. I was too tired to deal with it. Honestly, part of me was just exhausted from the whole situation. But I knew it wasn't over, and I knew we were going to have another tough conversation. The next few days, I went over the conversation in my head, trying to figure out what I'd say to my brother when we talked again. I wasn't going to budge on my stance, but I also didn't want to completely blow up the relationship. Family is complicated like that. You want to protect your own, but sometimes the people you're protecting them from are the ones you thought you'd never have to. It felt like I was in this weird limbo, waiting for the next move. And honestly, I was just over it. But I also knew that this wasn't something I could just ignore and hope it went away. Something had to give, and I wasn't going to be the one to let Sarah's toxic mindset win. Final update. So here we are. The big talk finally happened, and honestly, it went about as well as I expected, which is to say, not great. My brother called me up a couple of days after his vague, "We need to talk again soon" text. He sounded tired, like this whole situation was weighing on him too, which made me feel a bit bad. But at the same time, I wasn't going to let that cloud the bigger issue. We met up at a coffee shop, neutral territory. The minute we sat down, I could tell it was going to be one of those conversations where nobody really wins. He started off by saying how sorry he was for how everything had played out. He said he didn't want there to be any bad blood between us, and that family is important to him. But then, of course, he brought up Sarah again. He tried to explain how she was feeling, how she was coming from this place of wanting to protect her family's future, blah, blah, blah. It was the same stuff I'd already heard before. It was. I just sat there, listening, letting him get it all out. But when he was done, I told him straight up, "Look, I get that you're trying to keep the peace, but Sarah crossed a line. There's no justifying what she did. She didn't just hurt me. She disrespected Lily. And if she can't see that, I don't know how we move forward." He didn't argue with me, which was a relief. He just nodded, and then he dropped the question I knew was coming. "So, what now?" And honestly, I didn't know what to say at first. I've never been great at these types of conversations, but I told him the truth. What happens next is up to Sarah. If she's willing to apologize, if she can see how wrong she was, then maybe we can move forward. But if she's going to keep acting like Lily isn't a part of this family, then I don't see how we can keep pretending everything's fine. He sat with that for a minute. I could tell he was struggling, probably because he knew I was right, but also didn't want to admit it. In the end, he didn't make any promises, didn't offer any real solutions. He just said he'd talk to Sarah and we'd go from there. So I guess that's where things stand. I'm not holding my breath for some big resolution anytime soon, but at least I made it clear where I stand. At the end of the day, I'm not going to compromise when it comes to Lily. She's my daughter, and she deserves to be treated like part of the family, no matter what Sarah or anyone else thinks. And if that means things with my brother and Sarah stay awkward for a while, or maybe even forever, then so be it. My priority is making sure Lily knows she's loved, and that nobody, not even someone in the family, can make her feel otherwise.